that you are curious of how much does the J1 intern or a hospitality employee earn. Well, you're in a treat for today because I'm going to be sharing a lot of information to you guys of how much does a certain job positions earn. Welcome back to my channel, and for today's video we're going to be talking about on what is the highest paying position in the hospitality industry. So if you're interested, just keep on watching. I know that every one of you are curious and wants to know how much does a J1 intern or a hospitality employee earns. So make sure to watch this video until the end because I'm going to be sharing a lot of information, and I will make sure that I'm not going to be wasting your time because I guarantee you that this video is very informative and helpful for you. In fact, during the process of making this video, I discovered and learned a lot from this topic. So make sure you subscribe to my channel and click the bell button below so you'll always be notified to all of my jam-packed videos. So there are 4 different departments in the hospitality. First is culinary, second is housekeeping, third is front office, and last is the food and beverage department. So for culinary, there are different positions in this department. I discussed every single one in my past video. I will link it down below, or you can also check it from the card. So for culinary department, if you're a J1 intern, it doesn't matter whatever your position you are in, as long as you are a J1 intern, all of you have the same rate. It also applies to the front office department. Either you're a front desk agent or you're a concierge, it doesn't matter. The rate will be the same. So for example, you're a front desk and your rate is $11. Even if you're concierge, if you're a J1 intern, you're still gonna be receiving $11. So for housekeeping and food and beverage supervisor, the rate will be based on what state you are in and what company you are working with. While the food and beverage department itself is kind of complicated. Why? Because a server, a busser, the host, or the bartenders earns differently. It depends on the state and company that they are with. So, who am I to teach you this? Well, for those who do not know me, my name is Rio. I am a former J1 student. I did it twice. I am a Filipino but currently living here in the United States. I guide millennials and Gen Zs who are intrigued and influenced by American culture and inspire them to come to America through the available work and travel visa programs that are offered. So let's start by giving you the idea of how much can you earn or the minimum wage here in America. And let me tell you that even though you are a J1 intern or an international student, you still have the right to receive the same amount as the American workers receive. So the minimum wage depends on what state you are in. For example, in California, the minimum wage is $12, while in Florida, it's $8.46. In New York City, the minimum wage is $15, but outside the city, it's $11.10. In Texas, the minimum wage is $7.25, while in Illinois, it's $8.25. So the key takeaways in this is that it is very important for you to know that every state pays you differently. Why? Well, make sure you click that bell button because I'm going to be sharing that in my next video. But for now, let's talk about on how much does every position in the hospitality industry pays you. So for culinary, you can earn from $9.50 to $18. For front office, you can earn from $9.50 to $16.10. For housekeeping and food and beverage supervisor, you can earn from $11 to $22. So for food and beverage, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of complicated because there are different salaries in every position. As I look at the internet, it always tells you that you can earn an average of $10 to $14 with gratuity. But what they don't explain is that there are different laws for tip employees. So when you receive tips as part of your compensation, your legal rights under wage and hour laws become a bit more complicated. The rules about what counts as a tip, how much your employers must pay you, and whether you have to contribute to a tip pool. All depends on the laws of your state. Although the federal law also covers these issues, employers must follow whichever law, federal, state, or even local, is the most generous to employees. So the basic rules of tips under federal law and state law is that they belong to the employee, not the employer. Employers may not require employees to hand over their tips unless one of these exceptions applies. State law, the employer to take a tip credit. Some states allow the employer to count all of our part of an employee's tips towards its minimum wage obligations. Although the employer doesn't technically take the employee's tips, the employer gets to count some tips as if the employer had paid them directly to the employee. Florida allows a tip credit as explained below. The employee is part of a valid tip pool. Under federal law and in the most states, employees can be required to pay part of their tips into a tip pool to be shared with other employees. So, as I mentioned earlier, no one really talks about this. So I am here to simplify it for you. For example, you are working in Florida and Florida practice the tip credit. But first, what is a tip credit? Tip credits. Minimum wage laws protect all employees whether or not they receive tips. Employees are entitled to earn the full minimum wage per hour as set by federal or state law. Currently, the federal minimum wage is $7.25. The minimum wage in Florida is $8.46 as of 2019. Because the Florida minimum wage is higher, employees are entitled to earn at least that much per hour. Under federal law and in most states, employers may pay tip employees less than the minimum wage, as long as employees can earn enough in tips to make up the difference. This is called a tip credit. The tip credit is the amount of the employer doesn't have to pay. So the applicable minimum wage or federal or state less the tip credit is the least the employer can pay tip employees per hour. If an employee doesn't make enough in tips during a given work week to earn at least the applicable minimum wage for each hour work, the employer has to pay the difference. Florida law allows employers to claim a tip credit of $3.02 an hour. This means Florida employers may tip employees as little as $5.44 an hour in 2019. However, if this lower minimum wage plus the tips the employee actually earns don't add up at the least the full state minimum wage, the employer must make up the difference. So, as I said, the minimum wage in Florida is $8.46. So if you're a tip employee, usually you only earn $5.44 per hour. Why? Because most of your earnings or your salary will be coming from the tips. By the way, not all the states here in America practice the tip credit. A good example is California. Their minimum wage is $12. So even though you're a tip employee, you will still receive $12 per hour on top of your tip. Based on my own and my friends' experience, we compare their salaries. I work in the food and beverage department where I receive tips, while they work in the front office department which doesn't really receive tips. So during the busy season, I can earn as much as they earn even though my hourly rate is half of their rate. Next that I want to talk about is tip pooling. What is tip pooling? An employer may require a group of employees to pool together their tips, which are then distributed among the employees in the pool. However, some of the states must follow certain guidelines in order to create a valid tip pool. First, only certain employees can be included in the tip pool. Employees may be included in the tip pool only if they are in the chain of service that results in a tip from a particular customer. In general, servers, bartenders, hosts, and bussers are considered to be in the chain of service, while cooks, dishwashers. The one exception to the chain of service rule is that managers and supervisors cannot partake in the tip pool even if they provided direct table service. Second, the tips must be distributed in a fair and reasonable manner. There must be a fair system for deciding how much in tips is paid out to each employee, usually in proportion to the amount of service the employee provided to the customer. In general, the lion's share of the tip should go to the server, with a smaller portion going to the busser and an even smaller portion going to the bartender or host. So by this information, it is not easy to predict of how much does really a server or a tip employee can earn. So that's why I'm here. I'm gonna be giving you guys examples for you to better understand it. So these examples that I will be giving is based on Florida wages or rules. Just a disclaimer guys that each salary depends on the states and your host company. So last year during 2018, I am a server and I make $5.23 per hour, while our bartenders also make $5.23 per hour. The bussers earn $6.50, while the host in our company earns $11 to $11.50 per hour, but then they don't receive any tips. But in other cases, there are host company that even though you earn more as a host, they still give you like a small percentage of tips. So these 4 job positions that I mentioned is the base salary. The base salary is really only the one that you can predict or count, as you may say, on how much you will be receiving for the next week paycheck. So as I said, the tip employees is kind of really complicated because it will still depends on the host company. Each host company have different rules and practices on how they distribute the tips. It depends on your position, how many people are sharing, and how many hours did you put in that day. So what do I mean by that? As I said earlier, these 4 job positions have different base salary too. So for example, the server and the bartenders get the least most per hour, but on the other hand, they have the most percentage of the tips. So if your hotel or your restaurants do tip pool like what my host company did, and as we all know here in America, people will always leave 20% tips. In our hotel, there's already automatic 18% service charge, and there's an option for the guests to put an extra tips or an extra gratuity. So you as a bartender or a server, that extra gratuity will be all yours. You don't have to share that. While the 18% automatic service charge will be in the tip pool. While on the other hand, some restaurants and hotels doesn't practice tip pools. They don't have an automatic service charge. So where do they get tips? Well, they tally all the tips from that certain shift, and then the servers are required to give at least 3 to 5% of their gratuity to their assistant servers or to their bussers or to the bartenders. It still depends on the host company or the restaurants what is their rule on how much you need to share to your colleagues. It's hard really to predict how much you will get tips in a day. So what is my personal advice for you is that just do an awesome job, a service that is exceptional, a personality that goes above and beyond. I know that there are guests that even though you give your 100% best, they will only give you 15% of their bill or 10% or sometimes none. But it's not always the case. Serve your guests not because only of the tips, but because you want to serve them, you want to give them an overall experience that they will never forget. And if you practice this every day and you give your best every day to your guests, I am 100% sure that you will always get the best good tips. And because I really want to be transparent about the salary, I will give you the real example or paychecks of me and my colleagues. So I have a culinary friend, and he said that if he worked 80 hours in 2 weeks, his paycheck will rangely from 800 to 900. So in that range, he mentioned that the tax and the housing has been already deducted. By the way, our housing is $200. So I also have a friend who works in the front office department. He earns $750 in 2 weeks. I asked my food and beverage supervisor, and she said that she earns $900 in 2 weeks. So in terms of the food and beverage positions, my friend who is a hostess, she earns $800 in 2 weeks. While my assistant servers or bussers friends, they usually earn $750 to $1,000. So how much does a server make? Well, based on my experience, because I was a server during my last J1 internship, in 2 weeks I usually earn from $1,200 to $1,400. And sometimes if it's really busy, I believe I earned $1,700. I know it's nice to hear that, wow, that's a lot of money, 1,700 US dollars. Yes, I know, but it's also not easy to do it. Because if it's busy season, sometimes you can't even take a break. Even just sipping a water is hard because it is super busy and you want to give all your best to your customer and give them your 100% attention. So yeah, that's all for today, and I hope you learned a lot in this video. And if you still have any questions, please let me know in the comment section below and I will be happy to assist you. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and click the bell button so you'll always be notified whenever I upload new videos. Bye for now!